yesterday, Declan Flood, he was telling me he used to manage 7,000 invoices a week. So you
Oh,
can
even
only
closer.
imagine if this was years ago, but he mentioned that. So if you can imagine, let's say, well, he was in the single digits, but if you have 10 or 20% of 7,000, 700, 2,800, twenty-eight
Yeah,
thousand invoices with mistakes, and you're losing X amount of money on all of them. Those are insane costs. So
absolutely. Absolutely. And this is where the technology comes in, one, in identifying these things, and
yeah,
very much, very much actually there are ways, which I'm not going to say here because it's our proprietary information. There are ways you can actually be predictive on stopping invoice disputes in the first place. Right.
wow. Something you mentioned was how do you know what to look for, right? Or what to pay attention to first. So how does, let's say there's a credit control manager, credit risk manager watching this right now, and they're looking for new ways, right, to adopt AI or to adopt technology. They've got it in their mind. Maybe their team isn't so bought in. They're worried it's going to lose their job. So how does that individual know what to look for and what to pay attention to first?
Right. Well, I suppose the easy answer for that is contact us. Right. This is well, no, but this is what we do. Right.
Disclaimer.
This is what we do. Seriously, we're helping companies to be best
Yeah.
practice. Best practice is what I was describing. But yeah.
2, 1. And guys, we are back again for another episode of the podcast. We have Mark Harrison back. We had a ton of jam packed information in our last episode. Today, we're going to touch on the importance of AI, how it's really implemented, how it's understood. And Mark's going to shine a light on what his beliefs are, his predictions, and how it should be used for credit control teams today. So, Mark, for those that don't know who you are, may not have watched the first episode, quick run through. Who are you? What do you do? And why should anybody stay on this episode to watch the next hour?
Okay. Thanks, Shane. Well, it's not nice to be invited back. Thank you. So I'm Mark Harrison. I'm the founder of Callisto Grand. We're a company that specializes in best practice in everything to do with credit control, order to cash. So we're consultants. We have an academy for training professional qualifications. We run workshops and so on. So really everything to do with best practice in credit control.
Awesome. So one of the most prominent questions I've been getting is what is my interpretation of AI and how I believe it should be used? I look at it as operational efficiency, enhancing speed, accelerating the way your business can work. But for you in this specific use case, credit control, credit management, shared services, what's your interpretation of AI in our industry today?
Yes, it's an interesting question because as I've been sort of looking into this a little bit myself, I find there are five different interpretations of what AI actually stands for. Now, most of us think of it as being artificial intelligence, but there is now augmented intelligence, assisted intelligence, and so on and so on. Right? So there's at least five kind of interpretations of that. There's also intelligent automation. So you've got IA as well as AI. Right. So I think, I think first of all, we have to kind of understand what actually is it we mean by this, right? I think
Yeah.
that's the first place to start.
Yep. So if shine a light on it, what does it mean?
Well, I mean, to me, artificial intelligence means literally that, where you have machinery that is more or less thinking for itself, right?
Mhm.
To whatever degree. But when you actually kind of drill down a lot of these kind of interpretations of AI, like what we're actually saying, a lot of it really still is kind of around what's been available for quite a long time. So
Mhm.
we've got RPA, we've got machine learning, and some of these terms that are now falling under the umbrella of AI are actually robotic process automation, machine learning, that kind of thing, just rebranded, right? So I think it's important that when potential users hear these phrases, that they actually say, so what do you actually mean by that? What is the functionality? Right? Because, like I said, RPA has been around for what, 20 years. OCR, optical character recognition, also that's been around a long time. Machine learning, yeah, but a lot of these things are just being rebranded. So I think the first thing is really ask that question. If someone's offering you AI, what do you really mean by it?
Absolutely. So if we backtrack a little bit, it'd be interesting to shine a light on the first AI release that you witnessed in shared service, and what was it?
Well, AI in its, if we're talking about in its true sense, or what I mean as in artificial intelligence, machines thinking for themselves, the reason why we kind of got kind of excited around mega AI really is because this is the nearest I've seen actually to machinery to some degree thinking for itself. Now we know there's still a degree of programming in voice bots and so on, but the sentient kind of quality, how these machines are responding to the different emotions of whoever it is they're talking to me this is something different,
Hmm.
right? And this is the, like I said, this is the first time I've really seen what I understand of what the future looks like today, right?
Mm.
Most of the rest of it, as I said earlier, really is just is doing very advanced programming based on historical data,
Hmm.
largely with some degree predictive analytics, but based on past history.
Yeah, I agree. So the predictive analytics piece, I think, is really interesting because in shared services and credit control, from what I understand, I'll be full disclosure, I am an absolute novice in terms of credit control. I'm a great host on a podcast, but that's why I invite smarter people than me so that they can talk to you about what the actual
Well, yeah,
topic is, which is why we've got Mark today. So, in terms of predictive analytics, the ability to predict a customer defaulting on making a payment, the ability to predict a specific customer, they will have a dispute on an order. Let's say the ability to predict a customer is a good paying customer and we can increase the lines of credit. Those are some channels. Then we've obviously got Mega, where we fit in, which is voice AI, the ability to deploy unlimited agents into the workforce to recover more debt at the same cost it would cost for one versus 1,000. And the ability to do that at a fraction of time, clear an entire backlog, is another use case that's really, really important. But then also you've got all these chat bots and you've got these agent AI agent workflows, which is the ability to have a computer take a number of tasks through a number of different systems and perform functions where it's not just type me this and let me know this. It's type type me this, show me this, put this in here, take this in here, show me a graph, take that graph and send me a report to my CEO. So of those three or four use cases that we are witnessing today, what do you think is the most impactful one you've seen so far in this year alone, let's say?
right. I think um, I think what's interesting really, you remember I said last time, and very much one of the raison d'etre of Callisto is to demystify a lot of things, to simplify a lot of things that have been made complicated in the workplace that are
Yep.
unnecessarily complicated, right?
Yep.
So, so going on really to what you're saying, I think I'm going to have to kind of prick the AI bubble a lot here and say that most of what you were just saying, Shane, is these are calculations that can have been made, indeed have been made, by the smarter organizations for the last 20, 30 years, right? You
Mm.
just pull certain sets of data together based on your lagging information,
Yep.
and with adding one or two predictions. So if our sales have been this for the last 2 years on average, or this customer pays on this day, has paid on this day every day for the last 6 months, 9 months, whatever. Therefore, we can see things like this account will go on stop in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 months, whatever. Right. So this is nothing new.
Okay.
This really just kind of emphasizes what I was saying about you really have to understand your craft. You have to understand your business. You have to have the knowledge to know, we got all this data. What can we do with it?
Mm.
What technology gives you is the ability to bring huge amounts of data together and do that, right? But without the skill sets of knowing which elements of data you want, you can miss a lot of opportunities, right?
Absolutely.
With other but predictive things like companies, are they going bad, that kind of thing. Well, yes, again, that's where you can look at kind of real-time data, right? And this is where um, technology is really kind of steaming it, and particularly in the credit area, it's very much the credit control area is very much leading the technology in finance at the moment, right? Because all of a sudden, a lot of companies have realized that cash is king. It always should have been, right? It always should have been, but because interest rates are going up and the world's quite unstable, so now they're looking at working capital and particularly receivables. And yeah, this is something that should have been done, to say,
Yeah.
10, 15 years ago, but it's happening now. So, and what is great is predicting adverse conditions, right? And in the modern credit world, in the risk side of things, which we're very much involved in risk, it's not just finances, right? It's this is what's really exciting now. The old days were just analyzing a balance sheet, running certain ratios against a balance sheet, a P&L, and all that. That's gone, right? Because this information is so out of date. As soon as it's published in the public, it's already almost a year out of date.
Yeah.
Where technology helps is capturing kind of real-time information. So this is a combination of quarterly reports, maybe, that companies make available, so you can still do your analytics on more recent information. But mainly the information companies have themselves, through the cash allocation function, through the collections function, through the risk function. This is business intelligence that's happening. If a customer starts paying later, if a customer starts having more disputes, from the telephone side, and this is where yourselves come in, recording telephone calls, speech to text, looking for keywords. So these are early real-time indicators, and this that something is different from what it was before. So and when you start to bring this lot into play, or even people, customers sending emails, and you can analyze those from text to highlighting keywords and things like that. This is where technology comes in, because you can capture huge amounts of this information that's moving all the time, right? And then look for keywords, key phrases, key trends, right? So, but again, you have to know what it is you're looking for, so it's, the system is not going to do it for you. You've still got to tell the system to look for certain things, right? So, and that's the difference perhaps from before, whereas risk was purely based on financial reports now. And there are other factors as well, beyond finance, right? Like the area now of ESG, which is environment, society, and governance. This is very much part of a company assessing if they're going to sell to somebody or buy from somebody from the supplier side as well. Now, what that means is one of the key things businesses are looking for with whoever they're trading with, buying or selling, the quality of a company's cybersecurity or data security. Right, because if you're sending out information by EDI, you're receiving orders by electronics, you've got to make sure it's coming from a very safe source, or indeed, when you're sending information out to another system, that it's not, that's not going to be corrupted and come back and pollute your systems, right? Because the cost of that is billions. If you're a big company, you're an airline, or you're a huge organization. So this is very much, again, where technology is coming into play. Other aspects, and where credit rating agencies like Moody's, for example, are assisting business, is where they are searching news feeds in the internet for adverse information, change of owners in a company, change of location in a company. Are companies located in safe geographic locations? For example, are they on a floodplain? Are they susceptible to forest fires? Are they in an earthquake zone? Right. So you don't want to be selling to somebody that's in a climatically unstable area, right? This is all part of credit control, believe it or not, right? Which makes the job actually phenomenally exciting now, because it's not just gray sitting in a back room in what looked like a very gray occupation, just analyzing sets of data. It's a lot more active now. So this is where technology, AI, advanced algorithms, however you want to describe it, this is where businesses will succeed. And likewise, we were saying about also another opportunity is to actually identify those companies that you can sell more to. It's credit control is often looked at an area where we used to be called the sales prevention department. We would, which is always grossly unfair. We were credit control, we were controlling credit, we still are.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. Controlling credit is important. You don't control it, it's out of control. That's when your bad debts happen.
Yep.
Far from being a sales prevention team. So if you got a credit limit and you've got companies that are sound and all the things I was saying financially and ESG wise and all the rest of it, this is information that can be given to the business to sell more to these guys. These are a safe bet. Don't keep kind of wasting time on these marginal ones. You've got a credit limit of £500,000, euros, and you're only spending 100. They're only spending 100K with them. That's there's opportunity for you. They tick all the boxes. They go and see if you can upsell with these safer bets.
All
So
right.
yeah, it's a very complex thing.
Well, look, there seems like there's a ton of opportunities right there to take advantage of. So
That's what,
which one
but
should we pick first, right?
that's
It,
what makes the job exciting.
it definitely does, but it also shows what potential is around the corner for the market that we're serving right now. It's really interesting to know how big of an ocean, how big of a blue ocean is actually present in this market with adopting technology. So one thing you mentioned was, how do you know what to look for, right? Or what to pay attention to first. So how does, let's say there's a credit control manager, credit risk manager watching this right now, and they're looking for new ways, right, to adopt AI or to adopt technology. They've got it in their mind. Maybe their team isn't so bought in. They're worried it's going to lose their job. So how does that individual know what to look for and what to pay attention to first?
Right. Well, I suppose the easy answer for that is contact us. Right. This is well, no, but this is what we do.
Disclaimer.
Right. This is what we do. Seriously, we're helping companies to be best
Yep.
practice. Best practice is what I'm describing. But yeah, um, and there are other forces at play as well, because and really a lot of this will be driven by audits as well. If you're a major company, your auditors are going to be looking down these things, checking these things as well, right?
Yep.
So you're going to have, and if the big four say you got to do this to the CEO, the CFO, then they're going to do it, right? But it's still a question of knowing what to look for and how to do it, right? So, which really is, not joking aside, every company is talking about upskilling their people, but you got to upskill them in the right way. There's no point spending, I don't know, 1 million or whatever training X number of people to write programs and algorithms if they don't actually know what they're writing them for, right? So you've got to really understand the basics of the business. Anybody can write a program, but you have to really understand the nuance of why you're doing it, understanding the end-to-end business, right? So all the things we were saying earlier, credit limits, payment terms, how often companies pay, how often they're invoiced, what's in the invoices, really, really thinking about the detail. This is also, to answer another part of your question, this is why people don't need to fear for losing their jobs, because the smart people will take the basic skills, right? Really understanding their trade. And I think I mentioned last time about the 10,000 hours. You really learn your craft. You've got to invest your 10,000 hours, which is roughly 5 years,
Yep.
learning your every aspect of the job. That's not doing the same process over and over again. That's something different, right? Understanding your craft is going from, basic cash allocation to high end risk management, right? That's credit control. So the people that are going to stay ahead of the curve, who will get involved in project management, who will get involved in uh, data science, shall we say, writing programs, not necessarily writing themselves, but working with teams of experts who are doing the language writing for you.
Mm-hmm.
These are the people that are going to be ahead of the curve, because they're going to be saying, I want this program written because I want it to do this.
Yeah.
I want these reports out of it, and we want these reports to go to the sales guys, business unit managers, regional managers, country managers, treasury managers, CFO, whoever, not necessarily the same reports, but different, all amounting to the same thing at the end of the day, but different flavors of the same thing going to different people. So it resonates with their area of expertise. Treasury looks at one thing, CFO looks at something else, sales guys look at something else.
Mm-hmm.
But they could all be looking at overdue debts or potential bad debts, but they're looking at it from a different perspective, right? So that's why if people just kind of just carry on working in silos, whether that's senior management or the people working in operations, they just carry on working in silos, then a lot of those jobs will go, right? And then companies will be looking outside to bring in the people I've just been describing. The smart ones will be saying, right, we can take 30% of the boring work out, the basic cash allocation or contacting smaller companies, kind of where Mega AI come in, so you can take that element out of the daily grunge, if you like, and then the people that are there can be working on the more interesting, exciting, the value-added tasks, right? So that's really how it should be, right? The machinery can do the boring stuff, but the people that with a little bit of a view to the future will be thinking, right, okay, I'm never going to be a data scientist. I don't need to be a data scientist, but I really need to understand what is really going on in my job, right? And this applies to accounts payable and various other aspects too.
What do you think is the number one thing that's preventing companies or departments from adopting AI the right way?
One that many corporates are pretty slow to change, right? It's only when they kind of sort of catastrophes start to happen that they start to adapt.
Great
So
strategy, right?
yeah, well, it's a bit like the Titanic. Oh, we've hit an iceberg, we better do something now. So and these icebergs are things like interest rates have gone up, so therefore cost of borrowing is now real.
Yeah.
So I think a little bit of fear as well. So what does it actually mean? Fear perhaps of getting it wrong, of choosing the wrong solution, the wrong thing. But things like that I don't think should be a barrier, because there are an awful lot of early adopters, right? An awful lot of companies that are doing stuff, have been doing things for quite a while, whether it's AI or say just technology implementation. So it seems kind of logical to me that really any organization that's embarking on or wants to invest now heavily in any form of technology, just ask. There's like, if we just take the shared service center world in Central Europe, there are more than 1,000 major shared services in Poland, Czech Republic, Hungary, Slovakia, Bulgaria, Romania.
Mm-hmm.
And there are plenty of organizations that are representing these companies. Just ask them, is anybody else using this service provider? Anybody else using that service provider? So we're thinking of working with, whoever, chatbots, whatever. Anybody got any experience? Oh yeah, we've done this, and let's work together. That bit doesn't have to be competitive, to not mess it up,
Mm-hmm. So was there anything you saw that built a layer of confidence above what existed to start taking a closer look at AI? And that's question one. And then let's give that a little bit of that to the audience, which is there anything that an audience member can look into to build more confidence in adopting AI?
Yeah, I mean, there are plenty, as I said just now, there are plenty of companies that are actually going down that road. And that's why I said at the beginning, some of the mythology, if you like, around what AI actually is. When you start to say, so this company says they're using AI to do cash allocation, right? And then you kind of explore a bit further and say, no, it's just machine learning. Whatever remittances come in, you just have to set up a set of rules so when it comes in next time, it matches to your invoices, right? That's not AI, right? So, but yeah, it's
It's true.
Like I said last time, I'm going to say a few things that some people might find uncomfortable. I'm afraid that's you just ask, what do you mean by it? But that applies in most
Yeah,
things. There are so many weird terms out there now that are just things that have been going for decades that are just repackaged.
yeah.
So what was the other part of the question? Sorry.
So what is there anything a viewer that lacks confidence in using or adopting AI? Is there anything they can look at to build that confidence or to build another layer of confidence so they can start using AI?
Yeah, I said there are plenty of organisations that companies can go to. These representative bodies, um, they should go to them and say, we're thinking of doing, X. And then there are lots of user groups available. So I go down that road. I mean, we're actually setting up a couple ourselves in the new year. For that very reason, our members have been saying to us, we'd like to have a user group on such and such a service provider, um, and this is just going to be an informal kind of group together sharing their experiences, right? So I mean, if we most of the technology we're talking about, the companies that are doing it have been, most of them been around for 15, 20 years, right? And they have a lot of clients, right? All of them, which is a good thing. So yeah, you can just, and the senior management of these companies have places where they can go and meet, right?
Of
That
course.
regularly they have forums they can go to, physically, online. So really it's communication, and don't be afraid to say, and don't be afraid to say, yeah, we made a right dog's dinner at that. We implemented this and we made a right bodge of it.
Mhm.
If we could go round again, we wouldn't do half of these things, so there's nothing wrong with that. That's really what we should be doing, as not necessarily as competitive businesses, but just as human beings helping each other.
So I think on that point though, it's a very valid point. But what I'm noticing is if you go to Google and try to search anything on usage of AI or adopting AI in a specific business around shared services, you're going to get a bunch of ads and a
Yes.
bunch of false information. So that makes it hard. Obviously, you could do peer to peer, but what if your peers are in the same position as you? Then you can say, well, do you want to use Chat GPT? And then it might not give you the right information, right? So is Callisto Grand the holy grail for finding people?
No, we're not the Holy Grail, but we're an example of an organisation you can go to, right? And if somebody's got a particular question or concern, we, through our network, we would ask the question, hey, one of our members has said X, can anybody respond to that, right?
Mm,
We did this. We did this at our conference a couple of times. We ran a couple of panel sessions on certain things that are big things for a lot of companies are going through certain upgrades of ERPs and so on. And so we actually did this, and we did it in a very open way, and it's kind of one of the things that we're going to be extending. So, but you're right. If you Google that kind of thing, you just get a load of service providers saying that we can do this, we can do that, we can do the other. It's I think it also comes back to some of the other things I think we said last time, that if you're going to be embarking down this road, right, you have to understand, you have to be really clear where they are today. Right? I think this is one of the biggest mistakes companies make in project management, is they'll someone will say, oh, such and such, this is the next best thing, go and buy it, whack it in, and all our problems will be little ones in 6 months, right? So, no, not the case. So you've really got to. It's everything really is down to the absolute basics, right? If we're talking about the credit control side of things, what's the quality of your master data? If you're making an awful lot of invoice errors today, you can go spend $1 million on an implementation and you'll still be making the same amount of invoice errors, just with a nice shiny dashboard to tell you what they are, right? But you're no further forward, right? Largely because the operational people and the implementation people have not really given a lot of thought to understanding the basic data in the first place. They
absolutely.
don't know what they don't know, right? Um, the software will only kind of replicate what you've got. As somebody said, if you've got a very efficient system, technology will help you be even more efficient. If you have an inefficient system, it will magnify your errors, right? I think
Yes.
it might have been Bill Gates or somebody said that, I think,
Mhm.
but and that's true, you know. So and then the other part, where are you going, right? You know, what is your definition of success? What is your definition of excellence? So we stay with the credit control side of things. Let's say you got, I don't know, an average of 25% overdue across all your portfolio. Your definition of excellence is to have that below 5%, or as we say, 2.5% or less overdue. That's where you're going to, and this is what we're going to achieve. And this technology is going to help us get there in 2 years, right? So you've got a very finite um, definition of where you are. Yeah, and be realistic. Don't try and hide the fact that if it's bad now, it's bad. Don't, you know, you can't alter that. You know, it is
Mhm.
what it is, and this is where we're going. And this is, and also for it to be really successful, it has to be a company culture, right? It's not just, oh, you know, we're giving this stuff to credit control, therefore they're going to make everything better. It
Mhm.
has to be company. So it has to start from the top, from the CFO. You know, we're going to invest a lot of money in technology or technologies, because it can be a blend of things. You know, it can be various, you know, analytics and predictive analytics, automated cash allocation, better spec of invoice creation and invoice dispatch. It can be working with Mega, you know, so a segment of the ledger can be
Mhm.
um, uh, passed over a lot to bots and so on. Um, so yes, you've really got to know where you're going, really, and to really think about the data, right? And just be very honest about where you are, you know,
Absolutely.
and bring in experts who actually understand, right? You know, and I'm not, you know, there's an awful lot of people out there who, you know, so yeah, we know we've done this before, and then what they're doing is they're trying to flog a process. They're not actually flogging the knowledge of your company, your
Yeah,
pain. You know, so that's a big difference. You know,
of course.
that's a very significant difference. Yeah, so it,
So
it's KISS really. It's not that complicated, but you know, a lot of people think kind of miss, you know, the the detail bit, and the details are tiny, right?
it's very true. It's very
I
true.
mean, there's a lot of small things that can bite you on the backside if you don't know what it is you're looking for.
Agreed. So a number of points have been raised around using AI for certain tasks, for certain outcomes. And credit controls are looking at AI as maybe an answer, maybe a problem or a solution, maybe a solution, but they want to know how it can help them achieve better outcomes. And some of those outcomes are adding more revenue, reducing cost, operational efficiency, well, increasing the efficiency of your operation. And a big one that I had no idea, absolutely no idea, is employee churn until I realized how soul crushing the job can actually be.
Yeah.
And it's very similar to cold calling. So, if a credit control individual or an executive or manager or operations manager in credit control is listening to this right now, if they want to add more revenue with the use of AI, how should they be using it?
Well, you said, if we stick with the thing you were saying about churn, all right, the success of any project really depends on the operating people being experienced, right? They only really get experienced if they stick around for quite a few years. So
Mhm.
you got to build a whole career path, right? You know, so which also kind of comes back to what I was saying earlier. So it's not working in silos. I work in credit risk. I work in collections. I work in cash app. That has to go, right? You know, you can't work like that because it's a whole continuous process, right? So that's why you have the churn, because
Hmm.
so many companies have adopted this. Basically, it's cost first, right? And it's which they could do in the past to a point, you know, when there was a high number of people that were available, students coming out of university, you know, and there was no consequence to overdues, right? You know, cost of borrowing was zero.
Mhm.
Um, and then coming back to the churn really comes back to the culture, right? So the CEO, the CFO, whoever, they decide they're going to go down this road of really going down the technology road. Um, it has to be cross function. So if we're talking about credit, right, or credit control, it has to involve the sales guys. This is going to be our objective. In 2 years, we're going to get to 2.5% overdue. We have to
Mhm.
improve our collections, our communication, our we're going to run overdue letter strategies, and they're going to be automated. There's nobody going to be able to interfere. We're going to set clear policies, clear strategies, and the systems are going to run these things, right? If you don't want a company to get an overdue letter, make sure they pay on time, right? Mr. Salesman, if he's your mate, you go see him, you talk to him and tell him, if he doesn't pay on time, he's going to get an overdue letter. And then the second one, the third one is going to go to an outsourced debt collection agency and so on, right? So,
Yeah.
so sales guys have got to be involved. Accounts payable's got to be involved if it's related. The business unit managers, everybody, right? And it's the whole company is pulling towards a certain direction. So, and that's not bad, and customers have to adopt to some of this as well. There's nothing wrong with that. If most companies have a mission statement and a vision and so on, and a culture, we're going to be the best pharmaceutical company in the world and sell whatever. You can just add another line to that and we're going to get paid on time, for our fantastic services.
Mhm.
All you're asking at the end of the day, all you want companies to do is pay to what they actually signed for contractually, right? You're
Absolutely.
asking for nothing more. Yeah. But but this is an opportunity for growth within the business. We were talking about attrition and churn. If everybody's buying into this really kind of huge project, it makes the whole thing really exciting because you've got a tangible objective, you've got a target, you've got something to work for. You can bring in other aspects to this, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You've got a real, you're working your way up to the top half of the pyramid on that. Your self-actualization, sense of worth, reward, all that kind of thing. Or another way to look at it, one of the things we like is in ikigai, the Japanese reason for living, having a meaning in your life. Well,
Mhm.
as we spend more time working than anything else, you can break out of this silo, very restricted kind of world. And when you open it up like that, the majority of people will be engaged because they're all pulling in the same direction for the same thing. You got reward, recognition, a reason for getting up in the morning, not just, oh my God, here I go again, I'm allocating cash, yawn, yawn, yawn. It's a very different story.
Mhm. Mhm. So what about, so let's say, look at this. So on the team, if you're looking to reduce churn, you build a better kind of environment for your employees to conversate, create dialogue, open the lines of communication. So I think a more fluid process of data flowing throughout gives everybody a
Mm-hmm.
better understanding of what needs to be done, what kind of problems they face, and what really is the biggest challenge at hand. But if they want to reduce cost, then there's a notion around, let me just, I actually had it from an individual in the US the other week. He said, I want to get rid of all my stuff. And I was like, what? You don't not even keep the best one? He said, I want them all gone. So I think there's a little bit of a grumpy old man. But in terms
Yes.
of
Sounds
reducing,
like it.
reducing cost, right? You always need
Yeah.
people. How should companies be
Yeah.
looking at reducing cost with AI?
Yeah. That the return on investment should be relatively quick. And really staying with this churn thing, there's the biggest cost, right? You got two things there.
Mm,
By not constantly replacing people, of course, you're going to get more efficient people. There's a lot of invisible costs in having a high attrition rate, right? The retraining people, the KPIs go backwards, the cash flow goes backwards. If you haven't got skilled people on the telephone or whatever, of course, it's going to go backwards. But these are kind of invisible costs, but now there is actually a cost of credit, so the cost of borrowing money to offset the weakness in your own receivables process. That's a huge cost saving. Imagine if you're carrying 50, 60 million overdue every month, right? And that can be 30, 60, 90 days, and you're carrying that every month, and you've got to
wow.
borrow money from the bank just to pay the wages because you're not collecting money. There's a cost saving, right? The recruitment costs, particularly if you're looking to recruit managers and so on, you have to pay agencies for that, or you have HR people wasting their time trawling the internet or LinkedIn or whatever. So these are the other costs, right? But basically, it's just down to the main efficiency on our side. Really, is just having a skilled consistent long-term team, right? That can communicate better, give this information, like I was saying earlier, out to the business so they can react quicker. That reduces your bad debts. So this is where the real cost savings are. It's not high level. We can take 10 people out, so we save €1 million or whatever. That's a short term thing, because 2 years down the road you'll be employing them again. So as everybody does, you chuck people out today, you bring them back tomorrow, right? So you think, well, why employ them in the first place? But so that's just that's an EBITDA thing. This short term quarterly, we just got to make the figures look the best they possibly can be. It's a false economy, right? It really is a false economy. You've got a long term strategy, really, Shane. If you're going to have every organization has a 5-year plan on the manufacturing side. And every year they renew that 5-year plan, right? Why can't you have the same with your people, right? Your talent, have a 5-year plan. We are going to develop these people to be the best in the business. They won't want to leave. We'll pay them properly, to offset the fact that people might leave and this other false view in shared services. So long as people are under our roof, that's okay. That's nonsense as well, right? It's what I mean is, a lot of companies say, well, our average kind of, people stay with us 3.5 years, before they go to somebody else. But in that time, they could have worked in 4 different departments. So your average kind of lifespan in credit, accounts payable, GL, customer service, 9 months. You can't build anything sustainable
No.
like that. You can't do it. So this is where the cost savings are at that level. And then, of course, with the reporting and understanding the reporting, reacting to the reporting, which can have things like, mega AI, bots in a certain segment, calling customers. So you've got that going on, so you will be collecting more. Other segments, more automated reminder letters, people will pay more on that, more attention to detail to invoice disputes. So you reduce the number of invoice disputes. It costs something like €25 to fix every single invoice, right? Depending where you look, depending where you are.
Wow.
But if an invoice is worth €50 and it costs €25 to amend it, maybe for a €5 credit note could cost €25 to raise a €5 credit note on a 10% profit margin. You're running at a €30 loss or something there, right? Get it right first time. Yeah. So, and this is where technology can help with the root cause analysis, identifying these things right down to the nth degree, and then you can react and fix it, right? You see, so it's not all balance sheet stuff directly, right?
That's insane. Well, who was I speaking to yesterday? Declan Flood. He was telling me he used to manage 7,000 invoices a week. So you can
Well,
only
most,
imagine if this was years ago, but he mentioned that. So if you can imagine, let's say, well, he was in the single digits, but if you have 10 or 20% of 7,000, 700, 2,800, 28,000
yeah,
invoices with mistakes, and you're losing X amount of money on all of them, those are insane costs. So
absolutely. Absolutely. And this is where the technology comes in, one, in identifying these things,
yeah,
and very much, very much actually there are ways, which I'm not going to say here because it's our proprietary information. There are ways you can actually be predictive on stopping invoice disputes in the first place. Right?
wow. So for
Yes.
those that are on the other side of the fence, where the target is to reduce costs by X amount or X percentage, then we have another team that is targeted on generating more cash. So from what you know, the number one go-to that you'd put your finger on for credit control teams to add more revenue slash generate more cash with the use of AI, what would you recommend they look at or start doing?
Well, if we're talking about generating more cash, as in reducing overdues in the first place, that's a no-brainer, right? You just get
Yeah,
paid on time as much as you
yeah,
possibly can.
yeah.
And as I said before, there are many opportunities to upsell. And by closer relationship between sales and credit or collections, you know, um, and really kind of understanding your business, KYC, know your customer, all that kind of stuff, which, as I was saying earlier, um, like Moody's and companies like that, there's no reason why you don't have a really huge data pool of information. So
Mm.
it's just, and that's something else. So many credit risk teams work separately to the rest of the company, right? The collections and the cash allocation. I really don't understand why, because they are absolutely one and the same.
Yeah.
When we call our department credit control, the credit limit is set at the sort of the beginning of the process, if you like, and that's one of the key kind of collection tools. If you're getting close to your credit limit, customers got to pay, or you got to resolve disputes. So
Hmm.
um, so really, that's how you get more effective. It's just going back to basics. It's the systems will help with huge amounts of data across countries, across regions, across industry verticals, business units, however, and then you can drill down and look for common things as well. There are other ways you can save, like in my example, when I was operational, I was responsible for 15 countries. 5 different business units, which was kind of like 75 individual organizations, if you like.
Hmm.
Um, but a lot of these are actually selling to the same company. So at the end of the day, you've got our big company all selling to the same company, right? It might be in France or Spain or Germany or whatever. But if you kind of bring all this information together, and they'll have different payment methods, different payment terms, or do this in Germany, this in France, this in Spain. When you're looking at standardization, from our mothership in the Czech Republic, as it were, you can talk to the customer in many cases and say, look, we're sending invoices here, 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 and here. You've also got to process these invoices. Often the bigger companies will have their own shared service center in Poland or wherever else.
Hmm.
So their accounts payable are processing invoices from us to them, but in 5 different countries. So why don't we just consolidate this, right? Why don't we make this a key account? Let's aggregate the prices. Let's have one payment method, one payment term. you know this is what every company goes out there talking about: lean processing, right? This
Hmm.
is lean processing. This is where technology can help as well. You're not going to be able to do that in every case, right? But if you can do half of them, and you can, some degree, you can standardize things, and you're going to have to compromise. If you're selling for 1,000 in this country and 500 in that country, it's okay. We'll make it 750 across the board, right?
Hmm.
So obviously there's more complexity to that, but in principle, same on the other side with your suppliers, right? Again, you'll have the same kind of thing on the other side. Every country all buying from the same suppliers and not working as a one key supplier, right? So again, bring it all together. Then you've got the sort of purchasing power. We're spending 200,000 here, 100,000 there, 50,000 there, 900,000 there, all from the same company, right? So we're actually spending 2 million a month or a year or whatever. Now it becomes a key supplier. You bring it all together, one, right? And that's how you. Again, these are ways to save money, right? These are cost efficiencies, right? It's more. It's not. The balance sheet stuff, like I said, is. This is why a lot of people make mistakes. They just look at the P&L, they look at EBITDA, and they live and die by EBITDA, and they struggle to look beyond what does this actually mean. What is beyond this. They just see 2 figures. Oh, this one's got to be bigger than this one. Let's
Hmm.
take 10%. Let's take 10% cost out, which normally means people, and false economy, right? You lose knowledge, you lose experience, you lose reputation, you lose so many things, right? So it's yeah, it's a more holistic thing. But AI, could help when you know where it is where you're going. And I said, and Mega AI is a great example. Segment your ledger. All these little ones, they can be worked by the chatbots, and they can take care of a lot of it. You can even do other aspects. So with things like with support like Mega. If you want to be a global business service, you can do this in the true sense of the word. You can bring all these functions. You could, in theory, have all your collections, or to a point, could be done in one country, one place. So time zones are not relevant anymore. You've got chatbots working.
Hmm.
They got to work 24 hours a day. So you can have even more economies of scale. Obviously that's not going to work with bigger accounts. They need to be local, but you can bring an awful lot of stuff into into one place or under one control, shall we say, right? One central
Yeah.
area that's looking at all of this, So it's yeah, there's a lot more,
Makes sense.
but it makes sense.
Makes
It's
sense.
not that complicated if you look at it like that, right? So
Well, remember, common sense is not too common. I learned that many, many years ago. Common sense is not too common,
yes,
which is why people need these opportunities with people like you on the other side. So, last question as we wrap up. What is your, let's shine a light into Mark Crystal Ball. If you were to make a prediction for 2024, or sorry, 2025, knowing what's happened
five,
this year,
yeah.
what's your prediction for how credit control teams will will start adopting AI in their business, in their function, in their department? What's your prediction
Yeah,
and how they will use that for
There,
2020?
there already is this year in particular. I think there's been a big uptick in all aspects of technology to do what we've been talking about. To actually bring information together, to be able to look at it in many different ways, and that's exponentially going to continue to grow. Right,
Mm-hmm.
we work with a lot of tech service providers, as you've seen. And they're all saying much the same thing, which is great. That's how it should be. The days of Excel spreadsheets and manually running reports and things like that, that has to stop. The
Absolutely.
the more manual touch points, the more errors. So this is really going to grow more and more, and certainly for really the more innovative and more agile companies as well, the ones that can implement quickly. I think these guys are also going to have a lot of wins in the next couple of years too, because it's not that it's not that higher risk, shall we say. It's more agile, it's more flexible, and certainly, and I'm not just saying it because I'm talking to you, the the what Mega is doing, these sentient bots and
Yeah.
work, because it's not only just a robotic voice doing something, as you've been showing on your posts and so on. There is emotion in there, and
Mm-hmm.
there is this degree of vulnerability,
Mm-hmm.
and that also applies to many smaller businesses as well. If you're a big company and a lot of your customers are pubs or smaller businesses, there's that vulnerability there as well, and the ability to be able to uh, um, identify stressful responses from the customer, and then pass over to a human to do human intervention. This is really going to a lot of companies are going to adopt this. I can see that. So
Well, I
that's
think
it's
that's a
exciting.
jam-packed episode. That is the top of the hour. And I think, look, we're going to have to dissect more topics on a lot of items around credit control. But Mark, as we have closed up the show, are there any last words that you'd like to mention?
No, I think I probably said too much, but no, I think I think hopefully businesses start to realize that credit control is not a process. It's a profession. It's an incredibly exciting profession. It's very responsible.
Mhm.
So invest in it. Invest in the people. Invest in the technology. Um, don't don't cheat. Don't cut costs in this area, because it will only rebound. So I
Absolutely.
guess that's my last word.
All right, well, I'll throw in one. There's a big event happening in March. Callisto Grand is the host. It's happening in West London. I'd like
Uh-huh.
anybody who is looking at learning about AI, about credit control at a deeper level. We are members. We have been to some of these events, and I will say, in the past 10 years of being involved in delivering events, selling events, putting delegates in events, no jazzing it up or blowing it out of proportion, but Mark's events are absolutely incredible. So, Mark, thank you very much for joining us today. I'm sure we'll see you again next month. And that's it. That's a wrap.
Thanks a lot. Checks in the post. Bless you. Talk to you soon.
All right, cool.
Thank you. No, thank